The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and presenters. They do not represent the opinions or views of the Equita Group, Equita Final Expense Services, or its affiliates.
Hi there, everybody. Chase Urick here at the Equita Home Office. Excited about the podcast today. This is episode 10 of the In the Trenches podcast, and I'm excited because we've got somebody on who I've worked with now for a couple of years, and he's an absolute pleasure to work with. If you ever take a look at the leaderboard, you'll notice him and his agency always towards the top, doing it big each and every month. We've got Tom Simkins on with TNT Insurance out on the West Coast. They do a fantastic job, put up big numbers, and they're growing like a weed. Each and every day, you see more and more production getting put up, and it's exciting. So I hope you guys stay tuned. Hope you enjoy this episode. As we always do, we like to get started with some updates, some information, some news you can use. And one of the things that we've really received a great deal of feedback about is lots of feedback coming in from us regarding, hey, look, I found your podcast on iTunes. I don't have leads. I don't have mentorship. I don't have support. I don't have whatever it may be. We have a lot of people that contact us after finding the actual podcast. And so if you're somebody out there right now in podcast land and you're just missing a certain ingredient in your business, whether it be mentorship from somebody like Tom, who you're going to hear from here in just a moment, we welcome you to contact us. We'd love to get you taken care of and get you hooked up with somebody who is an expert in their field, somebody who's very successful, currently doing it each and every day. We'd love to help you out. You can call us at 800-765-0711. You can also go to EFESOnline.com, Edward Frank, Edward Sam, online.com. And you'll see a pop-up come up. There's a guy named Ryan who will ask to chat with you. You can chat with him. We'll get you in contact with one of our key people in your area to get you all the information that you need. It's a great opportunity to at least have a conversation, find out if there's a way to help your business today. And then also you've got WholesaleFinalExpenseLeads.com. Lots of people looking for leads, lots of people looking for, I got to get somebody to get in touch with, got to have somebody to see today. WholesaleFinalExpenseLeads.com. It can help you from, they've got a list of aged inventory, could be 90 days old, could be 2 years old. The price could go from, $10 all the way down to 25 cents. WholesaleFinalExpenseLeads.com is a great way to get yourself some activity on top of what you should have is a consistent flow of direct mail or Facebook leads already going on. So with that being said, don't mean to rush through the announcements and the updates today, but goodness gracious, we've got Tom Simkins on. If you've ever been to a road show, you've ever had the opportunity to spend some time with Tom, you know why I'm excited about today's call. So with that being said, let's get started. We'll cut that music. We're going to get Tom going here. Mr. Simkins, how are you this morning?
I'm splendid. How are you, Chase?
I'm doing well. I know you're a music connoisseur. What do you think about that Dire Straits firing you up in the morning before the podcast gets started? Does that do anything for you?
Yeah. It took me right back to 10th grade and the space shuttle experience.
Oh, man, that's awesome. I appreciate you spending some time with us today. I know it's bright and early for you out on the West Coast. But much appreciated. I've got people logged in, just so you know, not to tickle the ego at all, but we've got some people that are logged in live right now that I know for a fact typically just log in and listen to the recordings through iTunes. But they know you, they spent some time with you, and they're fired up to hear you live and in real time. So thanks for joining us. And with the duration of our relationship, I got to know you quite a bit. And for those that don't know who you are, your group last year, right at $3 million in total production as an agency, which is unbelievable. You guys continue to grow, doing big things. Heck of a personal producer. When you were out in the field, you've got a wealth of knowledge that you've shared with us. We want to kind of get into, with this first episode, with you being on with us, kind of helping people get more familiar with who you are, and how you got into the business and kind of some of your ideologies on the business. So with that being said, Share with us a little bit, if you don't mind, when did you first get started into the business and how did you get started?
Well, like most people, I got into final expense out of desperation. I don't know anybody who's, spent a good portion of their life going, when I grow up, I want to be a death insurance salesman. It's usually not a choice. It's usually, again, desperation. I found it on Craigslist. I had got laid off. I needed work desperately, so I was just on Craigslist in the sales and professional section. I'd always done sales. I certainly wasn't a professional and had essentially no formal education. Dropped out of high school, just kind of taught myself how to do everything in the professional world and work world. Just always had a really good work ethic. That's the one thing I had. And I actually started with Lincoln Heritage, like many agents do as well. And no matter where I went on Craigslist, there was a Lincoln Heritage ad. So I said, well, I've done pretty much everything else. Do I want to be an insurance guy? Not really. They're old and bald and complain about their wives. And I thought, well, I'm at least 2.5 of those, so I might as well give it a try. So got licensed and just basically said, what do I need to do? What do I need to say? And how many leads can you give me? And that's how I started.
That's awesome. And when you first got into the business, I know that a lot of people, we've had, Josh Jensen. We're going to have Roger Chan pretty soon, Lovely Johnson, who those that we've had on already, I love asking them to kind of get their perspective. What was your first impression when you got into the business?
It wasn't too foreign to me. I pretty much had always done sales or done service sales, meaning I was going to people's houses. I used to do water and fire damage restoration and carpet cleaning. So I was used to going to people's houses. I was raised at Jehovah's Witnesses. I would go. So I was used to knocking on doors and, having orange juice thrown in my face as a little child. That's fun. But I don't know. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of rejection. I wasn't afraid to knock on doors. I wasn't afraid to go to the hood. None of that mattered to me. I didn't need to make money. So, first impressions were just, this is a way to make money. Other than that, I really didn't give any thought. I just went to work. Sorry I didn't answer your question, but first impression was, another day at work. Let's go. Let's make some money.
No, you did. You did answer it, and that's just getting everybody's unique perspective on it is important because, we've talked about before this podcast started, and I've mentioned this with others. Some people you've heard, man, I thought this was illegal. I thought this was, this was too good to be true, the income potential, or, I thought we were selling caskets, whatever it may be. It's, I love getting the perspective of those that, that they got started and they're now successful. Tell me this, in terms of how you approach the business. If you go out today and you've got 20 brand new leads in your hands, you door knocking, you an appointment setter, you both, what's your makeup on that?
I'm a knuckle buster. I work predominantly down in Southern California, and if anybody's down there, it's a little tough to book appointments. People aren't necessarily as nice or friendly or as receptive over the phone, just because they get called so much. And I'm much more of a face-to-face person, so banging on the door just kind of came natural to me. So for me, an appointment or a preset appointment was putting them on my GPS. That was my appointment I had with them. So I tried to load, anywhere from 20 to 25 leads a day into my GPS, and just went. I would usually hit my first door at 9:30 or 10, and just worked until it wasn't practical to work anymore.
Yeah, that's something that whenever we talk to somebody whose background is in door knocking, I hate using the analogy, but it fits. Anybody who's into MMA, the wrestlers or the door knockers, they have the best foundation. I'm not saying that getting on the phone doesn't work. I don't mean to make Roger Chan roll his eyes here on the call, but, being able to set appointments efficiently is big. It's huge. But when you look at most of the people in the business as they got started, being able to develop those calluses on the knuckles, you just see this, there's something to be said for that attribute. And it's something that you can rely on. When the phone's not working and you're not getting what you need, to be able to go out and just knock on doors and say hello, that is a heck of a fundamental and to be able to kind of fall back on. And there's a war of attrition that takes place for door knockers compared to the phone, in my opinion. And when we talk to new producers, Tom, and I know that you work with quite a few of them, when you talk to new producers and you're working on training, you're having to get them ready for the mental game that comes along with door knocking. Do you mind sharing with us a little bit about, how you approach the door knocking game and what, the mental warfare may be?
Sure. Yeah. I'm just looking for that next sale. And if people are going to tell me no, whatever, I honestly don't care. I know the hardest part for door knocking is, getting a door slammed in your face or getting cussed out or whatever. And, that could wear on you after a while, especially if you get 2 or 3 in a row. I would just, go to a Starbucks for a few minutes or, just take a little 15, 20-minute siesta, just clear my mind and get back into it. But the way I learned how to deal with that was to just take control of my fear. So my fear was, rejection or getting a door slammed. So what I would do, I just kind of re-engineered it, and I wouldn't go home until I had at least one door slam in my face. I made my goal every day to get a door slammed on me or get cussed out or have somebody scream at me and, point a gun at me. That was my goal. And in the process, I may write 2, 3, 4, 5 policies in the process, but my goal wasn't policies. My goal was rejection. So, it's kind of quirky the way I did it, but if I got a door slam before noon, I was treating myself to lunch. That was a victory for me. And if it had gone to 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, I hadn't got a door slam yet. I need to be a little more aggressive at the door, and because I'm not doing my job, I'm not going to meet my goals with door slams.
Absolutely, and I don't want to get too far into the mechanical side of it, though that there's some serious nuggets that you can share with us. We'll save that for episode 2, but I would love to be able to ask you, when it comes to your preparation, when you're getting ready to go door knock, do you keep it simple and just organize your leads by zip code, or do you just throw them all in one stack? Just that one little nugget, I wanted to see if you could share that with us on how you would prepare to get out and go have a day just full of door knocking.
Yeah, I would try to load up my GPS the night before, and I would organize everything by zip code. I had one of those little file folder that has all the compartments in it. Got it from Office Depot, whatever, for a few bucks. Yeah, and I would keep all my leads, new ones, old ones I need to go back to, all that, all by zip code. And I would always try to work one zip code at a time. I always had appointments, and I would bounce around.
And then if somebody isn't home or you get door burned, you see the blinds move, and they're home but they don't answer, are you just making a note on that lead to come back around, at 2 o'clock, or how do you go about that when they don't answer?
If I know they're not answering, I'll usually break something on the way out so they remember me. Because when you come back, they'll definitely answer the door.
You don't want that guy to break anything else.
Yeah, I print out the leads. I make little notes. If I left a sticky note on the door, I have my little codes, SN with sticky note, SN 1 o'clock, or not home, spoke with husband, come back at 4. I have my little notes, my little shorthand codes I put on it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll definitely, when we get you on again sooner than later, we're definitely going to have to do a deep dive on door knocking and go into that. Tell me this. We talked about goal setting. And when you first got into the business as a personal producer, and obviously now managing a multi-million-dollar agency, what were your initial goals, and how have they changed since? If you don't mind, I just want to kind of go into where you first got into the business. What were your goals initially?
My initial goals, I needed to feed my kids, and I had ran out of change to find in the couch to pay for gas. So my goal was just to write at least one app a day, at least one. I needed to. I didn't really have many goals above and beyond that. Again, it was desperation. So I just needed to work, and I knew if I worked, I'd produce. But yeah, eventually it got down to where I was taking about 20 leads a week on average. And in my prime, I was probably averaging 22,000 a month. on that personal production. My goal was always to write at least 20 grand a month. That's what my goal became. And regardless of how many leads I took, I needed to do whatever I needed to be done to write 20 grand a month. Whether it was knock, cold doors, whether it was, workshops and presentations, get more referrals, just do something. I needed to write at least 20 grand a month. That was my goal.
And as you progressed and you started to hit certain levels of success, did you start to get more aware of, okay, well, I need to have this target, I need to have this daily goal or weekly goal, or did you just, I got my leads, I'm going to grind, and I'm just going to let the chips fall where they may, or did you really start to evolve and kind of start, picking up certain goals and certain targets?
Well, I didn't evolve, as you said, to that point. I didn't get that far. It wasn't an epiphany or an ascension or anything. I just went to work. I didn't calculate. I've knocked this many doors. I've done this many presentations. None of that shit mattered to me. I just needed to knock as many doors as possible to write as many apps as possible. That my goal was just go to work, and I didn't distract myself personally. That doesn't work for me to distract myself with any of that. I just needed as many leads as I could get. I didn't care how far I had to drive, unless it was 4 or 5 hours. Then I needed at least 10 that stay overnight. But I drive 2 hours, 3 hours to go to knock a couple leads, and none of those things matter to me. I just went to work, blinders on, and just didn't sweat the minutia. So I got a lead. This person wants help. I need to go help them. I have no control over the clock. I have no control over the price of gas.
Yeah, and I did not mean, as soon as I said evolve, I was like, hey, Tom is obviously very successful now. You are obviously one of the more intellectual gentlemen that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. So I knew as soon as I said the evolve comment, I was like, oh God, here we go.
I just wanted a reason to talk trash.
Yeah, it's just I love to kind of be able to pull out the information on the podcast, interviewing somebody who's had the success that you've had, and kind of be able to pull out, where you started, where you were, and then, kind of where you are now. When you work with new producers, do you keep the same mentality that you had, or have you changed it a little bit to where it's like, hey, let's be more numbers oriented, or is it really just the focus is let's make sure we're just going to work? Do you keep that same mentality that you had before when you're working with new producers?
Well, I try to see, how do they work? If I try to force fit somebody into my way of doing it and it's not their way of doing it, it's going to, oil and water, and it's going to make the day miserable. So if they want to, if they're a little more analytical about that stuff than I am, that's fine. Then we'll work on that and, try to show them ways of keeping track of stuff without the day being about keeping track of stuff. I do know agents tend to focus a little too much time on the minutia. I need to spend today calculating my numbers. Like, what do you need to do that for? Is that going to change? Did that change yesterday? Does that change tomorrow? Sorry.
Psychoanalyzing things.
Yeah. Like, just go to work. Go out and go to work. Whether they slam the door or whatever, none of those things matter. What matters is the next door. The last 10 don't really make a difference. But, I try to find the strengths and weaknesses in the agents and just sort of mold and guide from there. I show them how I do it. If they want to do it how I do it, cool. If they want to do it how they do it, that's cool too. And if they fail, then it's not my fault. It's theirs.
Okay, gotcha. And so when we talked about goals, kind of going into bad habits. I know that I've been around you as you've been working with some of your guys. I've been at events that you've put on for training and stuff like that. When it comes to bad habits, I love to get the perspective of each one of our guests on the podcast about if you had to pinpoint over your duration of being in the business, what would you say is your number one bad habit that you've had to overcome over the years?
That one would be booking too many appointments at the door. And early on, not being assertive enough to get into the door, that giving the people a way out by saying, "Oh, that's okay, you're around tomorrow," And, as we know, 50, 60% of the people aren't going to show. So probably booking too many appointments in the morning, and to parlay that would be not asking for referrals my first year. Those were my two bad habits.
Yeah, and I would love to really touch on that last one that you mentioned, because you're at all of the events that we've had this year. You were at every one of them in terms of the road shows, and we tried to rope you into being one of our panelists and speakers at every one of them. One of the particular topics that you did a great job on, and you touched on 3 different topics on all of the road shows, but you spoke at one of the events about referral generation. And I know it comes from rapport building. You and Richard Landis did a great job talking about it at one of the events. You mind sharing with us a little bit about, since you've learned and overcome, being that being one of the issues in the beginning for you, you mind sharing with us how you think about the referral generation side of things?
Yeah, it's from what I see, one of the most untapped resources for generating new business for agents that come in here. Oftentimes we get, linear, one lead, one policy, one lead, one policy. And I didn't ask for referrals pretty much my first year because I was uncomfortable asking about it, but I was projecting that onto the customer. I was justifying it with they're probably going to be uncomfortable with me asking for those, so I'm not going to ask. But it was really me being uncomfortable asking for them. And then I remember about a year in, I was like, because everyone's always talking about referrals. I'm like, I'm just going to ask them. Like, is there everybody else that may need insurance? Oh, my sister. Oh, she's across the street. Da 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 da. And that first time I asked, I ended up becoming the insurance man for the whole family, and ended up writing over 35 policies for that one family who all lived in one zip code off of one lead. And it was only because I asked. And I just repeated the process in every house. And I had cousins, second cousins, neighbors, the people they hated, the mistresses, everybody. People were giving me access to because the family now trusted me. And it was all just because I asked that first time.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a lead junkie. It all kind of starts there. You got to have a starting point. And there's a lot of successful people right now on this call who write a lot of business each and every week off of their leads. That's huge. And we're not hating on leads, obviously. They're the lifeblood of what we do. But asking and taking it that extra step after you've built the trust, you've built the rapport to generate that business, that initial piece of business, it's powerful. And it's a game changer to be able to generate additional business off of that one lead just by asking the question. And it's, your counterpart, your partner is one of the best at it. Tony DeLonda is an absolute monster. Number 1 with EFES last year, over 300 plus thousand, I think like 320 something thousand last year. Top 3 or top 4, top 5 again this past year. And, Tony's not taking 70 leads a week. I'm a big believer in taking leads every single week. But if you do the way you're explaining it, Lovely Johnson, who you know very well, she's a referral monster. If you take your steady flow of leads and you've got a real nice, tight-knit how you work on generating referrals pitch, you can really generate some nice business off of that one particular lead. Your team is one of the best at that, and I've noticed that over the past few years that you guys absolutely kill it on the lead generation side of it, or the referral generation, I mean.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the questions you asked earlier about numbers. Really, one of the only numbers I knew was that if I knocked 20 doors, I know I could, or if I spoke with 20 people, I could confidently get in to at least 17 of those houses. If I spoke to 20 people, get into 17 of them. Out of those 17 houses I got into, I was averaging about 24 to 25 apps out of those 17. So that would be, husband and wife. That would be, grandma and getting a policy, talking her into getting a policy for all of her grandkids, getting a referral here and there. So it was, if you do the numbers that way, the conversion ratios were really high, but it was because there was a lot of extra apps in there based on the leads I had and the people that I spoke to.
That's awesome. If you're right now in podcast land, whether you work with us or you're live on the call with us and you're currently with EFES, learn from your mentor how to go about, generating referrals. It can be a big deal, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, Tom. One thing I want to share and kind of go over and see if we can get this pulled out of you a bit. You talked about this at events, and I've always enjoyed it, is, your advice on working your book of business. And it may be similar to the referral side of it, but you know quite a bit about working your book of business. And, share with us, if you don't mind, your thoughts on how you go about that and doing it the right way. Because sometimes people get freaked out when you hear talking about working your book. We're not talking about churning. We're not talking about, rolling. We're talking about working your book of business and adding value to your clients. You mind sharing with us a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, that's an entirely another discussion, all the different angles and ways of doing it. The main way I used to work my book of business was I would start working it before I even had the client. So what I mean by that is when I would be with a client and I would do my quotes. I quote people 3 or 4 prices, and I quote based on what their monthly premium is, not what the face value is. And I just kind of, the way I do it that way is because the only person that really cares about the face value is the beneficiary. And that beneficiary is most likely not paying for the policy, so I would base it off price. But anyway, when I would quote, I usually quote them like a $55, a $65, and a $75. And then, we would, work around the price a little bit. I always wanted to find something that was affordable to people. So quite often I would talk them down into coverage. So if they says, well, I like this one for $75, okay, that'll give you this much coverage, blah, 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 blah. And I would say, now Chase, let me ask, can you afford this? If it came down to eating or paying your insurance, which one are you going to do? Oh, yeah, I can afford it. And I would ask them 3, 4, sometimes 5 times to confirm with me that they can afford that price. As soon as I got the 3-second pause, that's them now reconsidering. I say, okay, stop right there. That's all I needed to hear. I needed to hear that pause. And then what I would do is I would recalculate something at just below $70. $68.75, $69.98, whatever. I would say, hey, how's this sound? We'll drop it down a little bit. We'll split the difference between those. You're under that $70 mark. I said, the beauty of it is we can increase the coverage later whenever you want. Is this a little easier for you to handle? And they would always go, yeah, actually, it is. That is a little bit better. I said, no problem. What we'll do is in 6 months, we'll do a little policy review and see if you want to add any more. No stress, no struggle, nothing. It's nice and simple. How's that sound? And they go, oh, that's good. I go, do we have a deal here? Is this good? Yeah, that's good. Before I wrote up the app, I would open up my calendar on my phone and I would set an appointment for 6 months from that day. And I'd say, is this time of the day good? What day is good for you? I'd set the appointment and then I complete the app, write it up. If you do that every single time, starting 6 months from that first one, you have appointments every day. So what I would do is I would go back out, see that person 6 months later, knock on the door. Hey, Chase, it's me, Tom, what's up? I just walk in the house. They already knew me. I was already their friend. So I'd walk in, and then I'd do another quote, go through some health questions with them, build a rapport again or whatnot. But then I would quote them a 25, a 35, and a 45. And almost every time the conversation would go the exact same way. They pick the $45 one. Are you sure you can afford it? Well, I'm not sure. Talk them down to $39. And then from that point, I would set another appointment for a year from then. And I would put it right into my calendar, do it the exact same way. And I put all my little notes, wrote this with this company, my little notes so I have them. If you're Ben, then you would put it all in your CRM immediately. But whether you're putting your CRM or your notes or both, whatever, it works. So that's how I used to work my book of business. It was a preemptive book of business working, if that's how you want to say it.
Yeah, it was very measured, very strategic on how you do it. I like that. And I've enjoyed hearing you share that with people at each one of the events, at each one of the road shows. Talking about the mental warfare that takes place in our business, share with us, if you don't mind, a little bit about when you're having one of those days, and we all know, whether Dan Garrity and I are talking, Lovely, who you know, and you top producers you see at the leaderboard, everybody goes through this where you have that day where you just can't give it away. You can't, there are no lay downs. You just can't give it away. How do you approach days like that where it's just you're getting beat up?
Just quit being a little baby and just keep working.
Just grind through it, get through the no's to get to the yeses?
Yeah. I mean, the next door has nothing to do with the last door. If the last door upsets you, okay, the last door upsets you. Doesn't mean you need to call 20 people and whine to them about it. Why would they want to hear about your bad door experience? If you're sitting around drinking beers and making fun of it, that's cool. But, yeah, I mean, if you need a little bit of motivation, call somebody. But the last thing you want to do is call someone who's already in the field working and give them the play-by-play of the entire conversation that would happen, and nobody cares. We're already dealing with our own stuff. If you're having a bad day, then work as hard as you can to get through the day because you have another one tomorrow. And if that one sucks, then work through that one and start the next one over. You can't change what happened. You can't see the future. So, yeah, it just
misery loves company. Don't call me.
Yeah, exactly. If you need to take a little break, take a little break. But don't, I'm going to go home now because, somebody yelled at me, wah, wah, wah. Then go home. But don't tell anybody you're going home because that's horribly embarrassing.
Last but not least, we love kind of ending each one of our podcasts with this particular question. When we have somebody on, we love to kind of ask them and kind of get a peek into their experience in the business with the biggest lesson. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned in this business? For somebody who's new out there, somebody who's inexperienced with us, you might share with us what's your biggest lesson you've learned in the business since you got going?
This is a business, and you have to run it that way. If you have an employee mindset, if you're very sensitive, if you get discouraged real easy, may not be the business for you. It's it takes a little bit of a tough skin. Most of us are a little off kilter, which is, I think, if you talk to any of the top producers, they're all a bunch of weirdos. I mean, look at Jensen, look at Chan, look at Tony. These something's not right with these people. And those people tend to succeed here and do well because we just typically don't see things the way most people do. So we just, we go through the day and do our thing, but run it like a business. You're going to have expenses. You're going to have costs. It's an investment. Every part of this is an investment, whether it's time or money or energy or resources, whatever it is. Nobody's going to coddle you. Nobody's going to hold your hand through the thing. Nobody's going to buy your pens for you. It's your job. It's your responsibility. Every part of this is, all your successes are your fault and all your failures are your fault. It's all your fault. If you're not seeing enough people, you're not buying enough leads. If you're worried about what leads cost, then you probably should be sitting at a desk getting a check. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, this takes a particular personality type, and you have to understand you need to spend money, you need to spend time to make it back. And if your mindset is I bought 20 leads 2 weeks ago, I'm still working those. There's still people I haven't got to. You will essentially never make it to the left side of the leaderboard. You constantly have to have fresh leads. Don't blame the leads on the economy. Don't say that these leads suck because of this, these leads suck because of that, because the very simple answer to it is all leads suck. There's no such thing as a great lead. And I know that because it doesn't matter what kind of lead you buy. If you're not out there working and knocking the door, you have no idea whether leads are good or not. So if you're saying, I have all these leads and they suck, nobody's home, the economy, everybody's broke, give those leads to Roger Chan and see what he can do with them. And I guarantee he will turn them, convert them into sales. So most of the time when people say, this industry is tough and they make a bunch of excuses, they just suck. Or they're just not working hard enough, or they're not following the example, or just emulating somebody who already knows what they're doing and somebody's already successful at it. They're trying to reinvent it all, trying to figure it all themselves. And it tends that they're looking for excuses versus looking for the next opportunity.
I love what you just said right there, because it kind of goes along with something I had heard from someone not too long ago. It's, top producers wake up every day unemployed, essentially. No one's going to cut you a check. No one's going to just, 9 to 5 it. And
I like that. Magic. They wake up unemployed every day. I like that.
It's magic on what you guys do when you look at the leaderboard each and every month. So, Jensen is probably not happy that you called him a weirdo, but because it's you, I know he's got a lot of love for you, so he's probably cool with it. But, Tom, as always, man, I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. We're going to have to get you on to do episode 2 here sooner than later.
Okay.
I appreciate you, buddy, and we'll do it again soon. And, guys, I appreciate big turnout today for the live audience, and lots of people tuned in. If you're in podcast land right now and you missed the beginning of the call, if you're out there right now and you don't have a mentor, you don't have a Josh Jensen, a Ben Bowman, a Joe Chacho, a Tom Simkins, a Cole McCoy, one of these top producers that do what they do each and every day, and they're very good at what they do, you need that mentorship. We welcome you. Give us a call, 800-765-0711. You want to learn from somebody who's as good as there is, like a Tim Winders. We've got some of the best in the business here. And mentorship, training, service, and support is something we pride ourselves on. We would love to help you. 800-765-0711. You can also go to EFESonline.com. And we hope to see you guys again soon. And we'll do it all over again.